I've got problem 65 from the homework up here. This is one of the assigned homework problems. So doing this problem is getting a jump start on the homework. I want you to try this on your own and then tune back in. You're asked to do two things. Given this polynomial here, and given that -1 is a 0, you're asked to factor it completely. And then you're asked to solve this equation, which you'll notice just sets that function equal to 0. So pause the video, try to work that out, then tune back in. All right. Given that -1 is a 0, that gives us a factor. That means that x minus -1 or x plus 1 is a factor. So I know that I can write f of x as x plus 1 times some other factor. And I can find that factor by just dividing f of x by x plus 1. Because if I have f of x as this times some unknown, to find that unknown, I just divide the x plus 1 over to the other side. Of course, this is very nice because this is just 1x minus a number. It's minus -1. So I can use my synthetic division. So we had 2x cubed, 1x squared, -37x minus 36. The 0 we were given is -1. We put exactly what the 0 is. From the corresponding factor, we would change the sign because it's the number we're subtracting from x, and that number is the 0. All right, so I bring down the 2. 2 times -1 is -2. We add to get -1. We multiply to get 1. I'm going to get -36 times -1 is positive 36. I add to get 0. Now I knew we were supposed to get 0 here because I knew this was a 0, so my remainder was f of -1, which is 0. That's the definition of it being a 0. I also knew that this was a factor, so that things divided in evenly. So now I know that we've got 2x squared minus x minus 36. Excellent. So we've got this lovely quadratic, which we can try to factor, or we could use the quadratic formula. Okay. Turns out this one does factor. Let's actually see if we can't figure that out. Okay. If you find it easier to use the quadratic formula, that's totally fine. I would just caution you, when you use the quadratic formula, you're going to get two zeros. X minus a 0 and x minus the other 0 will be factors. But don't forget, you're going to have a constant factor of 2 as well. Now, if I'm doing this by factoring here, I'm hoping that that's the result of FOILing. Now, I can see in order to get 2x squared, I'd have to have a 2x in one factor and an x in another factor. Okay. And then the numbers that multiply to give me 36, I'm going to just list my possibilities. I could have a 1 and 36, a 2 and 18, a 3 and 12, a 4 and 9, or a 6 and 6. Okay. I can see those numbers would have to have negative signs so that I get -36. And I'm hoping that if I put a pair of numbers here with appropriate signs, I can get a middle term of -x. I think what's going to work is this, because I can see if I put the 4 here, I'd be multiplying it by 2 to get an 8x. I'd have to put the 9 here, that's going to give me a 9x, but they're going to have opposite signs. Let's see, if I want to end up with a -x, I'd want the bigger number to be negative. So there's my 2x squared plus 8x minus 9x gives me a -x minus 36. Excellent. So we have completely factored things. Now I can go ahead and solve this equation, which means I'm finding the zeros. Well, if I set this equal to 0, that would mean that either x plus 1 equals 0, or 2x minus 9 equals 0, or x plus 4 equals 0. This would give me x equals -1. That was the 0 that we were given. This would give me that x is equal to 9 halves, and this would give me that x is equal to -4. So my three zeros would be -1, 9/2, and -4. Now, if you had used the quadratic formula instead of factoring here, you would have gotten the two zeros, 9/2 and -4. If you did that, you would have been able to say, okay, I've got x plus 1 as a factor, then so is x minus 9/2, and so is x minus -4, which would be plus 4. Okay. But then you'd say, wait a second, that would make my lead term x cubed. I want my lead term to be 2x cubed, so I'm going to have an extra factor of 2. Okay. Totally fine. Notice if you combine this 2 with the x minus 9/2, if I distribute the 2, so I say, let's just write the first two factors, x plus 1, x plus 4, and then we've got x minus 9/2 times 2. Now if I distribute that 2, I'm going to get 2x minus 9. I would accept either form of things. It does turn out to be the same answer either way.